Chapter 34. Homecoming Shock. The year was 1946. In Jonesboro during the fall of 1946, William Branham stayed on the platform for 8 straight days and nights, praying for a steady stream of sick and needy. He ate his meals on the platform and napped behind the pulpit while those in the prayer line stood patiently waiting for him to wake up and resume his work. By the end of the week, Bill's forehead throbbed with weariness. The back of his hands were raw where he had pulled out the hairs trying to keep himself awake. Still, he did not want to stop. He wanted to stay there until he had prayed for every sick person who came through the doors, but he couldn't. The news of healings and miracles was like a magnet, drawing thousands more to Jonesboro throughout the week. When Bill finally did quit on the 8th night of that Jonesboro healing campaign, the prayer line was longer than it was when he started. Bill felt exhausted physically and mentally. Pastor Reed put him to bed, but Bill felt so jittery he couldn't fall asleep. He thrashed back and forth under the covers for hours. At last, rather than fight it, he decided to drive home to Jeffersonville and collapse in his own bed, where hopefully he could sleep for days undisturbed. After a few hours of driving, Bill had trouble keeping his eyelids open. To keep himself from falling asleep behind the steering wheel, he beat his leg against the door until the paneling dented out of shape. Once he did doze off. A blaring horn jerked him awake, giving him just enough time to swerve back to his side of the road. Shaken, he pulled the car over and stopped so he could get himself together. Mita was still asleep in the back seat. Bill got out hoping that a walk would refresh him. Somewhere he lost himself to exhaustion. When he finally came back to his senses, he found himself standing in a cow pasture with his hands stretched out, mumbling, "Only believe, sister. That's all you have to do. Just believe." He shook his head fiercely, thinking, "What is the matter with me? I seem to be coming apart." Reaching Jeffersonville late in the evening, they stopped at Mita's parents' house to pick up their children. Rebecca was now 5 months old. Bill had not seen her for 3 months, so it was not surprising that she didn't recognize him. When he tried to hold her, she cried and struggled to get back to her mother. That hurt. "She doesn't know me," he complained. Calming Rebecca with the swinging of her body, Mita nodded at a picture of Bill propped up on an end table. "I've got that same picture of you sitting on our dresser. Every day I pointed to it and told her, 'That is your daddy.'" Bill looked at the picture, then at his face in the hall mirror. "No wonder she doesn't recognize me. I've lost 20 pounds. I've lost some hair, and my shoulders stoop. I don't look the same at all." Another shock awaited them when they drove up to their own house. Cars lined both sides of the street for several blocks, and there were nearly 200 people waiting for him in his yard. "What's this all about?" Mita asked. Bill blushed. "Everywhere I went, I gave out our address and told the people to stop by if they were ever near Jeffersonville and needed prayer. I didn't think they would come this soon." Late into the night, Bill prayed for the crowd in his front yard. Finally, the last person drove away. Mita helped Bill get into bed. It was 2 a.m. He lay there quietly drifting into a limbo of half-sleep. Suddenly he jerked awake, his legs cramped. Mita sat up. "Bill, do you know what you're doing?" "I thought I was sleeping." "You had your arm around your pillow and were mumbling, 'Who is next? Now if you will just believe, 'cause the angel told me if I could get the people to believe.' Bill, I'm worried about you." Outside, a car drove up. It sounded like an old car. The engine idled roughly, causing the fenders to rattle from the vibrations. Someone knocked on the front door. Mita touched Bill's eyelids with her fingers and gently pulled them shut. She said, "I'll tell them to come back tomorrow. You go to sleep, dear." Bill heard a man's voice in the kitchen saying, "Our baby has been sick for a long time. It won't stop crying. Cries day and night. The doctor can't figure out why." Bill heard the baby making a strange noise, sort of a wheezing sound, like it was trying to cry, but had no energy left to do it. The noise didn't even sound human. Bill heard Mita say, "Well, I just got Bill to sleep, so I don't want to wake him right now." Then Bill heard another woman say, "We came from northern Ohio. We've traveled all day and all night to get here." Bill thought, how can I sleep with that poor baby suffering in the next room when maybe a prayer could help it? He staggered out dressed in his pajamas. A 10-week-old baby lay on the kitchen table wrapped in a blanket, its little face twisted as it feebly tried to cry. Bill asked everyone to kneel, and together they turned their voices to the one who had the power to deliver that suffering child, Jesus Christ. The baby stopped crying. Its face relaxed. By the time the couple left 10 minutes later, the baby was cooing and smiling. Before Bill had time to crawl back into bed, another car drove up. Bill heard footsteps running towards the house. Someone pounded on the front door. Bill let an excited young man into the kitchen. The young man said, "Brother Branham, my sister has appendicitis. She's in bad shape. She's scheduled for an operation in Louisville later this morning, but now her condition is so bad, Dad doesn't think she can make the trip to the hospital. It's a mountain road, real rough. We live about 35 miles west of here, near Milltown. We know what God did for Georgie Carter, so Dad sent me to see if you could come and pray for my sister. Will you come?" Without a second of hesitation, Bill said, "Yes. Let me change into my clothes real quick. Then I'll follow you in my car." Mita started to cry. "Honey, you'll fall asleep somewhere." "No, I'll be all right, sweetheart," Bill reassured her. His confidence sagged after a dozen miles. His eyelids felt as heavy as lead sinkers. Sometimes he pinched himself to keep his senses. Sometimes he bit his finger. He even spit on his fingers and wiped the spittle into his eyes, trying to ward off sleep. The young man was right about the terrible condition of the road, especially the last few miles where the road narrowed into 2 tire tracks between fences and snaked back and forth up the mountainside. At least he didn't have to worry about falling asleep, since the road jerked him smartly every time his tire hit a rock or dropped into a rut. The 2 cars parked outside a farmhouse. After meeting the father and mother, Bill followed them to the bedside of a girl about 18 years old. Her pale skin glistened with beads of sweat around her temples. She showed Bill her swollen side. The girl's father said, "She hasn't eaten in 3 days. Today she couldn't even hold water down. She's supposed to be operated on later this morning. An ambulance is supposed to come up in a few hours to get her, but she's gotten so much worse tonight that now I'm afraid she can't make the trip." Bill understood appendicitis, having watched his friend Sam Adair operate on patients several times. If this girl's appendix was about to rupture, and it certainly looked like it was, then she would most likely not survive the 40 miles to New Albany. Those first few miles alone would murder her. Nervously, the girl asked, "Oh, Brother Branham, do you think I'll live?" Choosing his words carefully, Bill answered, "I believe you will, if you have enough faith. Do you believe that Jesus Christ can heal you?" Her answer rushed out in a jittery burst. "Oh yes, I believe. My church says the days of miracles are past. But I don't care what my church says. I believe. Georgie Carter got well. I'll get well too. I'm scared of the operation." Having seen thousands of healings and miracles over the past 6 months, Bill saw through this girl's nervous confession of faith to the doubt and fear that lay underneath. "Sister, I do not mean to hurt your feelings, but you do not believe. Ordinarily, there would be enough time for me to let you take what little faith you've got and let you try to believe for your healing, but this is an emergency. You've got to believe right now, or I'll be honest with you, you will not live to see the hospital." Neither the girl nor her parents appreciated his frankness, but Bill couldn't help that. The situation was urgent. He decided he had to try something radical in order for her to catch the idea. Bill sat on one side of the girl's bed, the side nearest to the center of the room. Her parents and a few friends stood on the other side of her bed, the side nearest to the wall. In the center of the ceiling glowed an electric light. A string hung down from the light cover, suspending a red and white bracelet halfway between the ceiling and the floor. Bill didn't know why this bracelet was hanging there, unless perhaps it was used to amuse the baby that was in the house. Now he figured this bracelet would serve his purpose well. Bill said, "All you adults need to turn around and face the wall." Then he said to the girl, "How far do you think that bracelet is?" "About 15 feet. Why?" "You're telling me that you have faith to believe for all things. I want you to prove it to me. I want you to look at that bracelet, and I want you to make it swing around and around on the string. Then I want you to make it swing back and forth. Then stop it still. If you can do that, then I'll know you have faith enough for a miracle." The girl's surprise mingled with disappointment. "Oh, Brother Branham, my! Why would you ask me to do something like that? No one can do that." "Oh, yes," said Bill. "Anyone that believes. Jesus said all things are possible if you believe." She remained skeptical. "But Jesus was talking about spiritual things. This is material. Could you do it?" "Yes, ma'am." "Could I see it done?" "If you desire. Keep your eyes on that bracelet." Bill fastened his own eyes on the object and concentrated his faith. By now he had seen God perform so many miracles that he knew all things were indeed possible through faith. In a moment the bracelet began to circle on the end of its string. Then it began to swing back and forth like a pendulum. Then it stopped. The girl gasped. "Brother Branham, that's spiritualism." "I thought you might say something like that." "No, it's not spiritualism, it's faith." Now, spiritualists use that many times to play pranks, bust glasses, bend spoons, and so forth, but it is still just faith. The girl could not grasp what he was saying. "I belong to the Church of Christ. We speak where the Bible speaks, and we are silent where the Bible is silent. There is nothing like that in the Bible." "Sure it's in the Bible," said Bill. "Remember one morning how Jesus went up to a fig tree looking for some fruit? When he didn't find any, he put a curse on it. The tree began to wilt. When he came back in the evening, the tree had withered to death. Peter remarked how quickly it had happened, and Jesus answered by saying that not only could you do what he did to the fig tree, but if you say to this mountain, 'Be moved,' and don't doubt in your heart, by and by it would come to pass." Didn't he say it? Sure he did. I know your pastor was just trying to justify his unbelief by saying that was a mountain of sin that Jesus was talking about, but it was the Mount of Olives. He said it just took faith as a grain of mustard seed. Now, if that little bit of pure faith can move a mountain, how much smaller faith would you need to move that bracelet? The girl lay contemplating. Each labored breath made her wince. Bill decided to try another approach. "Look, sister, an angel came to me 5 months ago and told me that before I was born, I was foreordained by God to take a gift of divine healing to the people. I stood face to face with a supernatural being, and he told me if I could get people to believe me and be sincere when I prayed, nothing would stand before the prayer. If you will believe with all your heart, that's what will move God. Your faith will save you, not what you've worked up in your mind, but what you really believe." The girl answered, "Brother Branham, I know that there is something above where I have reached. God have mercy on me. I'll try with all my heart to believe in him." Taking hold of her right hand, Bill watched his own left hand swell red to the pounding of unseen vibrations. He had touched appendicitis before and was familiar with the pattern of white welts that formed on the back of his hand. By the intensity of the vibrations alone, he could tell that this case was severe. As he asked the Lord Jesus to intervene, the throbbing in his left arm diminished, then disappeared. His left hand returned to normal. Bill said, "God bless you, sister. Your faith has saved you." Amidst the joy and relief that passed through the room, Bill sat down and instantly fell asleep. A few hours later, he woke up with the sunshine in his face. The father said, "Good morning," and enthusiastically shook Bill's hand in thanks. I called the ambulance and told them there was no need for them to come since my daughter is completely healed. The girl was out of bed now, sitting at the kitchen table, eating ice cream. "I feel great, Brother Branham. The swelling is all gone from my side, and there's not a bit of pain left. I am so hungry."